Let's talk about authority for a second. Just a quick overview, because I think that sometimes when we talk about authority, I think it can be a confusing thing. And I think we have to take a step back out of the human design information and look at the whole system with a big sort of overview, big picture view of what are we doing here and why are we talking about authority? What happens to many of us, if not all of us, even before we're born, we're conditioned. We are programmed by ancestral memory on a genetic level. We are programmed by our mother's experiences during pregnancy. We are programmed when we're born by our experience of other people's energies. We are programmed by watching our parents, and we're imprinted by the ways in which they behave. We are programmed by our lived experiences, things that happen to us. We're programmed by intergenerational energy patterns. You inherit your human design from your grandparents, and your parents are sandwiched in between the two of you, dealing with core archetypal energy themes, both from their parents and then through their own children. We take in and internalize not just from our own family, but from our culture and our collective core beliefs and ideas. And oftentimes in that evolution of us growing into adulthood, we learn to internalize those ideas as formulas for success. What oftentimes happens is that because most of us are not designed to follow an exact formula for success, we all have our own formula for success and our own definition of success, is what happens over time. We learn to follow that formula, and we're born with an internal compass. That internal compass, we're designed to connect to this internal compass that tells us what's right and good and true for us and what isn't. And oftentimes when we grow up believing, oh, well, we have to follow society's formula or the world's formula, or we've internalized this formula of what we need to do to protect ourselves. We hide away our authentic identity. What we also oftentimes do is we shut out the voice of our internal compass. And sometimes that shutting out process means we have to silence our body, right? Because our body oftentimes knows, our gut knows, right? Our skin, when it crawls in response to something we're not supposed to do, it knows, right? And our mind is like, oh, body, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. What you're wanting to do or what you think is right or wrong is unreasonable. And the mind starts to run the show. There's nothing wrong with certain aspects of the mind. Okay, so this isn't an anti-mind conversation, but it is a pro-body conversation. Because oftentimes what happens is we learn as the body continues to try to get our attention and tell us, hey, this doesn't feel right. We have to learn to really silence that and oftentimes disconnect from that. And usually what happens is one of two things. Number one, we either become so good at numbing ourselves out that we've evolved very elaborate protocols to keep our body silenced, right? We watch a lot of Netflix and we eat a lot of Cheetos, or we do whatever those things that we do sometimes to just keep the body quiet. Or sometimes the body is so loud and it's so good at getting our attention, it does something really dramatic, like gives us cancer or we burn out, right? And then the body is kind of like, hey, we can't do this anymore, I can't, right? Part of the goal of human design is to get you back in touch with that internal compass, that inner sense that you have, that guidance system that you have that tells you when are you heading in the right direction, where are you, where do you go, or what does it feel like to follow the path that is yours to follow so that you can fulfill the potential of your story, so you can fulfill that whole journey that is so much the juiciness and the uniqueness of you and your life. And so human design as a tool is really An awakening tool. That's actually what Ra used to call it. It's an awakening tool, right? It's not necessarily a lifestyle you're supposed to live forever. Once you awaken, then there's the next step. That's what we talk about in quantum human design. But certainly in the beginning, when you're first learning your human design, the goal is to support you in following your strategy for your type and your authority, because that's a healing prescription for you. That's a prescription that retrains you to drop into your body. And really, authority is about getting back into the body and beginning that process of healing that rift between your direction and the messages that your body's giving you, and helping you learn to remember, what does it feel like when I'm following what feels right for me? And what does it feel like when I'm following what doesn't feel right for me? And how do I stop it, right? So when we're talking about authority, we're really talking about the different things that each of us, depending on our configuration, have to pay attention to in order for us to reconnect and become familiar with, again, and heal in some cases, that sense, that inner visceral sense of what does rightness feel like to me, and what does wrongness feel like to me, and how do I give myself enough experimenting and exploration and repetition so that I can start to really trust that when I feel this way in my body, that's an accurate assessment of what's right and what's not right for me. So that we get out of the following the old formulas and the conditioning and all the training that we have about these are the things you have to do to be successful. And we learn to drop into that space of maybe being a little bit irrational in some ways, but being deeply aligned with your natural internal compass that tells you what's right and what's wrong for you. In quantum human design, we talk about sacral authority, which is that generator, We talk about resource authority. And for those of you who have a defined resource center or the will center, we're talking about making sure that before you make a decision, you've checked in and you know and you sense and you feel that you have the energy and or the resources for something. We talk about creative authority. That's that authority, that's emotional solar plexus authority in traditional human design. That's that authority that says, okay, I am emotionally in a space where I have a positive expectation around this, or I can sense and feel this isn't right, right? And we give ourselves permission to trust and sit with that feeling long enough to know that it's an accurate response to a situation. So we learn to give ourselves time if we have creative authority to really feel our way into our choices. If you have splenic authority or self-actualization authority, this is that in the moment, also very similar to a sacral response, but not with that same sound, but that in the moment, that level of instinctual sense that, oh, this is right or this is not. This is the right time or not. Or it's the time to take right action because I'm in trouble, right? Sometimes it's that fear response. There's one other authority, and that's self-authority, or sometimes we call it sounding board authority. And this is true for all of you projectors and all of you reflectors, and sometimes even people with an undefined throat or an undefined G. You need to talk through your choices with someone, not because you need advice, because you don't, but because you need to hear yourself talking. You process orally before you can sense and feel what feels right and good for you.